So what I've got here is the Max Transit Duo LTA. This is a Cat12 dual modem device, and it's called the Transit because originally it was designed for transportation, right? It's a really good size. It's almost pocketable, if you can see, but it's also a metal enclosure. It's industrialized. It can cope with a large range of temperatures and indeed voltages. And let's talk about power, because that's one of its party tricks. If we look on the front here, I'll try and get this stable. What we can see over here is a typical DC in, and the power supply that comes in the box is a normal plug in the wall 12 volt 3 amp power supply, which plugs into there, but it supports 12 to 48 volts. So if you're in a vehicle situation, you can power it from the normal 12 volts in your car, or 24 to 48 volts that you might find in lorries and trains and trams and other types of transportation like that. So that's one input, but we've actually got 4 power inputs on here individually. Over here we've got a green terminal block, and if I just angle it right, perhaps towards the light a little bit, you can see that the first 2 pins are VCC and ground. So the red and the black, the positive and the negative of a DC system, they can be connected there too. And if you've got power connected to the green DC input and also the DC barrel input, the original one, it will actually use power from both sources at the same time. Now that's great if you've got one connected to the main car engine battery and another connected to a service battery that might be topped up with solar or with a split charge in the vehicle, because then the Transit will stay powered and uninterrupted, provide uninterrupted service when the power sources change, right? So that's really good. But on top of that, we've also got USB micro connectors. There's 2 of them, and you can use normal USB battery banks to power this thing. So actually, with its size, this can be used in lots of different places, particularly with the power options. And I've seen many people put these into backpacks and power it with USB power banks and have dual cellular connectivity on the move for video streaming, or for camping even, some people, right? But of course, it's also a great box to have in a vehicle as it was intended. So what else can we see on the front? It's quite straightforward otherwise. We've got a couple of indicators at the bottom here, which show you which of the USB connections are on and connected and whether they've got enough current to supply the Transit. And then we've got a wired LAN and WAN connection at the top. And then we've got our indicators over here: status light, green if the device is booted and everything is happy, and then the cellular lights there as well, which tell us whether each of the cellular connections is connected and to the internet successfully or not. Otherwise, it's a metal enclosure, and we just go straight to the back. And on the back, we've got the dual cellular antennas for modem 1 and for modem 2, and then in the middle we've got a GPS connection, and at the bottom there we've got the 2 Wi-Fi antenna connections. So this is 802.11.AC, so 2.4 and 5 gig Wi-Fi is available on this device. It is a single Wi-Fi radio though, so what that means is that although you can use the Wi-Fi as WAN, you can connect this router to a Wi-Fi access point to give it internet access, and at the same time you can also have wireless LAN clients connected to the device to use the internet, your tablets and your phones and your laptops. That Wi-Fi radio is shared, so the bandwidth is shared. The available bandwidth over Wi-Fi is shared between those roles. So generally, typically what I would recommend is that I would use the onboard Wi-Fi for Wi-Fi WAN if that's something that you need, and just use it for that role. And then I would probably add a little access point onto the LAN side of this to give a more to give a dedicated radio for Wi-Fi for the LAN clients. It just seems to work out better that way. You've got the router using all of its connections to give you reliable internet, and you're not dual purposing the radio. But if you're in a a situation where you can't have another access point, it's still a very valid way to connect to the device over Wi-Fi using a shared radio. In fact, when you look at Wi-Fi WAN, you've got the option to use 2.4 or 5 gig as a Wi-Fi WAN connection, right? And the nice thing about that is that you might be in a situation where there's Wi-Fi deployed at 2.4 gig and another Wi-Fi network at 5 gig, and you can actually connect to both of those at the same time. For the best efficiency though, if you use one of the frequency ranges for Wi-Fi WAN and use the other one for the LAN, then you've got the best possible efficiency in the radio. And then also finally on the back, we've got the SIM slots. Let me just undo that quickly so I can show you those, what they look like. Each cellular radio has got 2 SIMs which it can use. Now it only uses one of those SIMs at a time. It's an active passive or active failover situation for the SIMs. You can see them just there. So it's A and B, top and bottom for both modems. And the way the SIMs work on this, and most Pepwave products actually, is that when the device first boots, it will typically, if you've told it to use both SIMs, it will typically use SIM A first, check to see if it's got internet connectivity. If it hasn't, it will fail over to SIM B. Although there's a bunch of really good granular control over how the SIMs are used as well. So you can use SIMs based on signal strength per SIM. So if SIM A hasn't got enough signal strength, you use SIM B instead. Or you can do it based on bandwidth allowance. So you might have 2 SIMs. One's got 20 gigs of data, the other one's got 10. So when you get to 20 gigs, stop using SIM A and move over to SIM B until the end of the month, and then reset and go back to SIM A again. That type of thing. And that's it. That's the Max Transit Duo. Really popular device. You'll see them all over the place in everything. And a device that I've used very regularly for just about everything. Well worth a look. And there we have it, the Max Transit Duo.